Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Rekt Capital here. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Let's dive right into this video about Bitcoin and what's going on this dip, because we're finally seeing the first dip of 2023. It's the deepest dip. It's only 10%, but still we haven't really seen many dips over the past few weeks. Maybe a 5% dip in January. Now we're seeing a 10% dip. So that's the deepest dip, but can the dip go deeper? Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future, and let's dive right into it. So we've been talking about this on the channel, haven't we? About this monthly range for Bitcoin, the blue to blue range, so 20k to 23,400. And this level right over here is the range high resistance, and we have been seeing very similar signs to the mid 2022 rejection right over here. And before we saw this rejection take place, it was very much price was very much trying to break beyond this resistance, and at the moment still price is inside this range. So technically price could go all the way down to the range low support of 20k. So that's a psychological level, and this is the weekly time frame that I posted on Twitter late January 21st, where I was talking about a failed retest scenario occurring in 2022, and that Bitcoin could potentially have a failed breakout for that failed retest to occur. And indeed, Bitcoin failed to retest this 23,400 level, and you can see that very clearly in 2022, but a strong breakout, or at least a strong breakdown, whereas here we got a weekly candle close over here to confirm the loss of this 23,400 level as a support, and then an upside wick to turn that old support into a new resistance. And now we're seeing bearish continuation. So we've seen two confirmation signals of bearish continuation for Bitcoin, and at the same time, this 23,400 level, not only is that now a resistance, a clear resistance, but we're seeing a lower high form right over here. So now that we've seen this confirmed rejection and a confirmation and downside continuation, now that we've seen confirmation in that happening, it's very difficult to now think that it's going to be over, because we've only just confirmed this breakdown. So saying that the dip is over right now would be a little bit premature. We still have to see things emerge from this confirmed breakdown. We're only seeing the beginning of that continuation, so this continuation could still take a little while longer. And we've seen that a confirmed breakdown right over here, really no real confirmation actually, but just a strong breakdown without any confirmation. We saw that it took at least 2 weeks to revisit the range low. So let's see what happens over the next week or two for Bitcoin. But one of the things that I want to focus on here and talk about in terms of scenarios, because as you guys know, we've been talking about this dip for a while here on the channel. Just look at the titles in my previous videos, whether that's the RSI showing that it's a technical indicator that's indicating further downside, or whether there's a new pattern forming potentially where downside is needed for that pattern to form. And we're going to be talking about that pattern in a bit more detail. But you can see here that we have seen a rounded top occur at these highs, and we're seeing a breakdown from this rounded bottom, so downside continuation. But one of the things that I'm going to be watching for really to see if we see even more downside continuation is this portion of price action right over here. Are we going to see a replication of that soon at around the 21k region? Because if we do, then what do you think this would potentially entail? And it looks like that could be a potential head and shoulders formation if we see a cluster of price action develop like that. So this is a scenario that I'm going to be watching for. Should we indeed expect further downside from here? So a little bit more downside into the lower 21k region to form a similar cluster to over here. And if that indeed occurs, then that's going to be growing suspicion that we're forming a support at a neckline of the head and shoulders formation over this period of time, it will be really important to watch for the volume. And if the volume is declining as this formation develops, then it will be very important to watch out for this neckline formation, because that's going to be the validation point of this head and shoulders. And a measured move of the head and shoulders breakdown would be from the very top of the head and shoulders to the neckline, and then extending that length down below, which leads us to 18k roughly speaking. And really interesting to note that this ascending triangle right over here, the top of that ascending triangle is the breakout point for this new trend. And if we see a revisit of the top of that ascending triangle, then that's going to be a retest attempt, which is approximately confluent with the top, with the head and shoulders measured move target. So really interesting confluence there. But as you guys know, we've been talking about this on the channel for a while. This is also a higher low that can be propagated into the future, and if you continue to just propagate it into the future, we see alignment with that 18.1k region, roughly speaking, once again. So the top of the ascending triangle retest region, a measured move breakdown from the head and shoulders, and we're really just coming up with this sort of region right over here. So it looks like a potential triangle, a potential wedging structure is forming here. The orange lower highs, the orange higher lows here. So this is an overall structure that Bitcoin might be building, and this head and shoulders might just be a segue into that structure. So a breakdown from this head and shoulders would just mean that we're going to be revisiting the lower half of the structure, because if this structure is like this right over here, so the head and shoulders is occupying the upper half of that structure, so we could see some downside into the lower part of the structure. And if that does indeed happen, what's that going to look like on the monthly time frame? Because that sort of playing out would see downside wicking below the monthly time frame, right? Because if we're going to see price break down from the ascending, from the head and shoulders, and drop into this region, well, we're going to be trading below the 20k region, the range low of the monthly range, if we're going to see these regions, right? So this isn't a strange occurrence for downside wicking to occur below this level, in the same way that upside wicking wasn't a strange occurrence at the highs of this range. So seeing downside wicking below here, some sort of volatility, and then reverting back into this range like we've seen many times before, to various effect, of course, this sort of downside wicking isn't out of the ordinary. So something to bear in mind, especially once we see a breakdown from this head and shoulders. So that's about it for this part of the video. If you'd like to see more of this video, or at least the second part of this video, feel free to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll share the next part of this video in the coming days. Lots to cover overall in terms of Bitcoin's price action, but we've rambled on a little bit more than I thought. So this is going to be one video. Feel free to subscribe for part 2 of the video, which is going to come out next week. Like the video if you enjoyed this one. I'm Rekt Capital. Thanks so much for watching today, and I'll speak to you in the next one. But before I finish here, you can notice that the RSI is breaking out from this downtrending channel. It's going to be retesting the bottom of the previous bear market bottoms hit on the RSI in 2019, 2015, and we can see that the RSI is following this green pathway really nicely. It's something we've been talking about the channel consistently as well, and it looks like we're going to be following this pathway, and it actually looks pretty similar to what we're actually seeing in happening right now. So now we're seeing a dip into this region just to reconfirm this previous bear market bottom as a support once again, and that's going to be the ultimate confirmation for the RSI being ready for a next trend, which is going to be rallying towards the upside of this red wedge, rallying towards the upside of this red wedge, and rallying towards the upside of this red wedge, because essentially the RSI is trying to reconfirm the bottom of this red wedge, which is confluent support with the previous bear market bottoms on the RSI. So reclaim that base, and we'll be able to challenge for the most upper position in this red wedge. So The RSI is positioning itself quite nicely, some dipping left for the RSI, still healthy dipping indeed, so that could still tie in with dipping in price action as well. But in any case, more to talk about next week. Thanks so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe for the next video. I'm Rekt Capital and I'll speak to you in the next one. Speak to you soon.